green leafy vegetables, and in fact, leafy vegetables on the whole, a lot of research, and as a matter of fact, some experts believe that there are amazing healing benefits in the consistent use of green leafy vegetables and other leafy vegetables of different color as well. So welcome. We shall pray and begin. Heavenly Father, be with us now as we go into our health talk in the name of Jesus. As we continue with the principles of health reform and primary prevention, be merciful to us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Green leafy vegetables are, of course, packed with fiber, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, polyphenols, and they can help protect from many diseases, including heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and also help you to live longer. And your body can feel more satisfied. Green leafy vegetables are low calorie, usually zero sugar, but packed with protective nutrition. You can eat what we call in Barbados a wash pan full of greens, and you won't gain an ounce, but you'll be getting a whole heap of nutrition. Nowadays, people eat a lot of calories, but poor nutrition in terms of those protective nutrients. Whereas leafy vegetables are packed with nutrients and very, very low in calories. So we're going to look at the benefits and some of the important ones. So first of all, they are good for weight management because most green leafy vegetables, most vegetables on the whole, are very low in calories. So you can eat a lot of spinach, kale, broccoli leaves, and the other leaves, whole plate full. There'll be about just a few calories, very calories in the double digits, but packed with vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and fiber. Research has also shown that eating a lot of green leafy vegetables helps to prevent premature death, that is death under the age of 70. And we're getting a lot of that nowadays, a lot of deaths in the 40s, 50s, and 60s because of chronic non-communicable diseases and the ravages of inflammation and heart disease and diabetes. And eating an abundance of green leafy vegetables lowers the death rate, the premature death rate. Green leafy vegetables also are very good at preventing cardiovascular disease or even reversing it. One extra serving of green leafy vegetables can lower the risk of cardiovascular disease by 11%. And green leafy vegetables are rich in vitamin K, and some of that vitamin K, which is K1, can be converted to K2 in the gut by bacteria, and the K2 then, as we mentioned before, is very good for arteries and bone functioning to help keep calcium in bone and out of arteries. But the antioxidants and fiber in green leafy vegetables all help to keep cholesterol levels nice and low and to keep the arteries elastic and less stiff and to reduce inflammation of heart and blood vessels. Another benefit of green leafy vegetables is that eating an abundance of green leafy vegetables and cutting out the sugars and being moderate with the starches would help to prevent and control diabetes type 2, which, as you know, is rampant in the world. Green leafy vegetables are rich in magnesium, have a low glycemic index, and rich in potassium as well, rich in fiber, and all of that is good for preventing and controlling diabetes type 2. Green leafy vegetables are also good for bone health. The high levels of vitamin K and magnesium and calcium, and don't forget, green leafy vegetables are a good source of calcium. Good source of calcium. Research shows that middle-aged women who ate several servings of green leafy vegetables per day had a lower risk of hip fracture. As a matter of fact, they reduce their risk of hip fracture by 45%. So eating more green leafy vegetables reduces the risk of hip fracture should an elderly woman fall. Eye protection. Children who consume inadequate amounts of vitamin A have a higher risk of trouble in certain parts of the world where vitamin E deficiency is common. The carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin and beta carotene in green leafy vegetables are very good for eye health. And then cancer prevention. The antioxidants, the carotenes, the flavonoids, the fiber found in green leafy vegetables offer protection from many kinds of cancer, and especially the development of premature cancer, that is cancer before the age of 70. So what are some of the best green leafy vegetables? Well, we should be familiar with most of them. Kale. Kale is a top green leafy vegetable, rich in vitamins A and C and K, calcium, folic acid, potassium, fiber, some E, and has been shown to help prevent or slow down the growth of cancers. Kale. Broccoli belongs to the same cruciferous family, and broccoli floret, as well as the broccoli leaves, they contain sulforaphane and glucosinolates, and those are powerful protectors against a whole range of cancers and inflammatory diseases. Then there are the collards, which are similar to kale. Collard greens, again, very good sources of antioxidants and vitamin K. And then the various species of lettuce: romaine lettuce, red leaf lettuce, green leaf lettuce, multicolored lettuce, the arugula, which is a super lettuce, arugula, powerful greens packed with excellent nutrition, antioxidants, minerals, vitamins, fiber, very cleaning for the arteries and for the brain. Turnip greens, also very good. Swiss chard, another excellent green. We mentioned broccoli already. Spinach, both the ordinary spinach, purple spinach, and longevity spinach, rich in folic acid. And if you steam these vegetables very slightly, some of the nutrients are even better absorbed, but you can eat a portion raw and a portion just lightly steamed. The mustard greens are particularly known for being anti-cancer, the mustard greens. And the older folk in the Caribbean and Barbados, that's before 1950, used to use a lot of mustard greens. They used to grow them and eat them a lot. They're not as popularly chosen nowadays, but they're very, very healthy in terms of reducing the risk of cancers. Mustard greens. And they're similar in quality to the collard greens and to the turnip greens. Cabbage, whether green cabbage or purple cabbage, powerful in fiber, protein, a whole range of the cruciferous antioxidants, and contain powerful cancer-fighting molecules, cabbage green and cabbage purple. And then there are the small leafy greens like cilantro, which is a heavy metal binder. Parsley helps to keep the arteries relaxed and keep the blood pressure down. Mint, which encourages the liver to antioxidize and to detoxify. Spearmint as well. Sage, thyme, fenugreek. These greens are potent, and they also improve the healthy bacteria in the intestine, reduce inflammation, reduce the risk of premature death from cancers and the inflammatory diseases. So eat your greens for good health. Always choose crispy leaves with a fresh green color. Wash them thoroughly. They can be eaten raw, and some of them can just be lightly steamed. Some experts think you can eat a portion raw and a portion just lightly steamed to enhance the bioavailability of certain nutrients. And we all need, according to the research, we all need to eat more green leafy vegetables because we don't. And this fall off in green leafy vegetables around the world, coupled with eating more highly processed, refined meats and carbohydrates, all of that has fueled the obesity epidemic and the increasing load of chronic non-communicable diseases and premature death as well. So eat your greens, eat a lot more. We all need to eat a lot more greens. Can do them in the morning with a morning green shake. That is a good way to get them in. Eating more salad and green with your food. Some of them, like the cabbage bush and so on, the old people used to cook them with the rice. But we all need to eat more green leafy vegetables, and in fact, more vegetables on a whole. We are still specializing in a lot of starch, and because the greens are low in calorie, some people feel you're just eating bush and they want something heavy, but we need to eat fewer calories, a lot more green leafy vegetables, and therefore getting more protective nutrients without the calorie load that piles on the obesity. Very important indeed. Now, I mentioned some of the important ones just now, but people who eat a lot of green leafy vegetables have less colon cancer, less breast cancer on the whole, and also less cardiovascular disease, less cardiovascular disease. Some research is coming up on some more research on vitamin D, but we'll mention that a little later on. Now, a lot of these green leafy vegetables we can grow in the backyard in a bucket, the lettuces, kale, broccoli. Don't forget the leaves too of the beetroot leaves. We concentrate on the beetroot, which is good. The beetroot is a good vegetable, red, and is an excellent stimulator of the production of nitric oxide in the arteries. but the leaves of the beetroot, even the leaves of the turmeric root, the leaves of the turmeric vine, all the leaves of the, even take for example the sweet potato plant, the leaves are all good, green leafy vegetables. And a lot of research is showing that even the leaves of fruit trees, pear leaf and mango leaf and so on, can be used in teas, sometimes can be steamed, and are also rich in powerful protective nutrients. So the evidence is clear. We all need to eat more vegetables, especially more green leafy vegetables of a wide variety, to help reduce the risk of developing these chronic diseases prematurely and help to prevent premature death and to keep the cardiovascular system strong, the brain strong, and also to reduce the risk of premature development of cancers. So eat your greens. A bit of research update on vitamin D, now showing that as the research comes in, we're not just talking about virus infections like COVID, now vitamin D. Quite amazing research. Let me just see if I can find the article, a recent article on it that is quite amazing. The things that they are confirming that vitamin D can do. Let me just find it here for you. Wonderful indeed. Yeah, vitamin D update. This is from Life Extension. And the question is, can you afford to be deficient in vitamin D? Vitamin D impacts our health from immunity to heart health. And this is an update from several recently published research articles pulling the information together. This is what came out. One, supplementing with vitamin D was associated with a lower rate of rhinovirus infection, that's the most common cause of the common cold, in asthmatic children compared to children who were not supplementing. So young children, 400, 1,000, 2,000 units of vitamin D, especially when they're not out in the sun, they need that vitamin D. People with Crohn's disease is a chronic inflammation of the intestine, the last part of the small intestine, the ileum, and it goes into the colon as well. It is, we don't see a lot of it in our part of the world, but it is quite common in the North European and North Atlantic jurisdictions. But people with Crohn's disease were found to have a significantly lower level of vitamin D in their bloods than healthy controls. In other words, here again is the relationship between low vitamin D levels in the blood and a chronic inflammatory disease like Crohn's disease. Another piece of research coming out from all these published papers, tuberculosis patients were twice as likely to have vitamin D deficiency to compared to patients without tuberculosis. And we knew that from the old time days when people with tuberculosis sought sunnier climates and did better in sunnier climates. People thought at first it was the sunlight killing germs, but it was the vitamin D being manufactured in the skin. Vitamin D helping to reduce the risk for tuberculosis and any infection of the lung for that matter. Then another fact coming out, vitamin D deficiency is associated with increased levels of free radical stress across all age groups, whereas higher levels of vitamin D reduced free radical damage and reduce inflammation. I know this one is interesting because as doctors, we sometimes never thought of this. A condition called benign paroxysmal or positional vertigo, that is when persons turn their necks in certain position or get up suddenly, they develop dizziness, vertigo. They're now showing that vitamin D and calcium can lower the rate of those disease spells, vertigo, positional vertigo. And they're trying to find out how it does it. Vitamin D, wow. Coronary bypass patients who supplemented with vitamin D had less problems after the bypass surgery. So people then with coronary artery disease, heart failure, angina, which is chest pain, because the coronary artery is narrowed, most likely in more cases than otherwise, there is a vitamin D deficiency. And those people should make sure that their intake of vitamin D is right up there, 5,000 to 6,000 units a day. And sometimes you can be taking that amount and your level's still not adequate because of either obesity or your metabolism may be fast in removing the vitamin D. So adequate vitamin D helps to protect the coronary arteries and the arteries as a whole, helps to keep the blood pressure good, helps to prevent ischemic coronary artery heart disease and inflammation of the heart. And then another piece here of research, higher vitamin D levels were associated with a better response to hepatitis B vaccine. So people who had good or adequate levels of vitamin D when they were vaccinated against hepatitis B gave a better response than those who had low levels. And this is important across the spectrum. If your immune system is healthy, and if your vitamin D level is adequate, and you're given a vaccine against anything, you're likely to react positively and make good antibodies, whereas otherwise you may not. As I told you before, there are some people who, when they receive a hepatitis B vaccine, don't make the antibodies. In other words, the vaccine doesn't protect them because they're not making the antibodies, and they need a good, strong immune system. Sometimes it may be deranged genetically, but they also need vitamin D. And a review of the scientific literature also showed convincing evidence that vitamin D supplementation is also valuable for the treatment and prevention in men of erectile dysfunction. So you have vitamin D now, more and more research showing its overall importance to health when there are adequate levels in the bloodstream, reducing inflammation, protecting the cardiovascular system, protecting the brain, reducing the risk of a whole range of cancers, protecting against virus infections, protecting the lungs. Such a valuable vitamin is not just a vitamin, it is a pro-hormone. And we get it from the sunlight acting on our skins. And if you're not sure of that, and most days nowadays we can't be sure of that because lockdowns with the COVID, lockdowns with volcanic ash, dust in the air, we're not sure we can get out and get the sunlight we need. So take the supplement of 5,000 international units every day. If you miss a day, it's all right because it is stored and long-acting, but certainly daily. Researchers show that daily or alternate daily supplementation, keeping the levels up, that is important. You want the level right up there. Ideally, 50 to 80 nanograms per ml. That is a solid protective blood vitamin D level. Below 30 is inadequate, and there's a lot of people walking around with vitamin D levels under 10. I don't know, because about 40 to 50% of the population, especially in northern climates, are vitamin D deficient and don't know. So more green leafy vegetables. Don't forget the importance of vitamin D. And going along with that, of course, certain trace minerals that we mentioned before. We mentioned boron before. Boron is good for the brain, good for the arteries, good for the prostate. And boron also is very good for the bones. and helps to reduce inflammatory markers. Boron, a trace mineral, you need no more than 3 to 6 micrograms a day. Powerful micronutrient. Selenium, 200 micrograms a day. Powerful trace mineral. Again, you get that in seeds, pumpkin seeds, and green leafy vegetables, and also a good source. So eat your greens, and don't forget the importance of vitamin D. If you're not supplementing with vitamin D, do so. All right. I am being short today, so I'm going to open up now for any questions, and then we'll have a short break and hand over to Elder Austin Graves early. He has a fuller afternoon. I have to leave earlier than usual later on because I have to give a health talk to another group later on in the evening. Okay, this evening we stress the importance of green leafy vegetables, which we all need to eat more of. And we revised the importance of vitamin D. And we just rehashed the importance of boron, a trace mineral, and selenium, things that we sometimes forget. Boron is also very good for the joints, working along with what I mentioned several months ago, methyl MSM, the sulfur compound, methyl sulfonyl methane, MSM, and boron, very good protectors of the cartilage of joints, which tend to wear down as we get older, as if we have on too much weight. The cartilage between the bones in the joint tend to be worn down, and then we get degenerative osteoarthritis. Boron and MSM, methyl sulfonyl methane, and glucosamine, all of that helps to protect and prevent all of that helps to prevent and protect the joint from those problems. All right, so if you have any questions, any comments, you can. Yes.
This morning I used some kale and some lettuce, and I blend it with some lime juice. Is that okay? Instead of eating it, can you blend it and drink it? Kale and lettuce.
So you said you use what, Brother Jordan?
I used some kale and lettuce, and I blended it. Yes,
yes.
And lettuce and lime juice.
Yes, that's a good combination. Yes, that's a good, a light green drink. That is quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, so that way
some experts
do now from now.
That juicing them is good, but also eating some whole is also good.
Okay, then good.
Yes, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yeah, pleasant Sabbath to yourself and everybody listening.
Thanks.
Yeah, my question is, some plants are used for food undergo what is commonly referred to as genetic modification, to make the plant more resistant to insects and so on. But I know there are some persons who believe that simply by virtue of the thing being genetically modified, that it is bad to use, is unhealthy. But is that necessarily true? In other words, is a genetically modified plant that's used for food always, or is it necessarily something that is bad for your health? Hello?
Yes, well, that's an important question. There's a big controversy over genetically modified things. Some genetically modified articles have been shown to be safe. Some have been shown to have or to raise issues. Most of the nutrition experts in the pure line, the vegan line and so on, believe you should avoid genetically modified. Others think you should check what it is, and there may not be as much danger as people had suggested at first. So there is an ongoing divide and debate about it. But most experts suggest that you should stay with organic, non-genetically modified produce for most things, unless you can prove that what is genetically modified has not created any deleterious effects.
Okay, when you're shopping in the supermarket, the labeling should indicate which variety the particular
Yes, the labeling should indicate organic and non-genetically modified. That's true, but it depends then. In places like Europe and the USA, the standards, the authorities responsible for standards insist on that. Here in Barbados, we get less insistence because you can go into the supermarket and take up a bag of bread, and sometimes it doesn't even have on the fat content or the salt content. You just see so-and-so bread or something salt bread. But all these things should be labeled with whether they're organic, genetically modified, salt content, fat, trans fats, and that's the kind of standard that most countries demand.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Dr. Douglas.
Good afternoon, Sister Jack.
Yeah, I inquired about children with growing pains. What are growing pains? And what vitamins or what will be needed to help that?
You know, some children in the teenage years, in the growth spurt years, girls in the 12, 13, 14, boys in the 14, 15 range may have what are called growing pains. They are not of any pathological significance, and they pass off after a while. It isn't an indication of any particular lack. It's not called a disease. It's just a physiological process, just like the breast lump in boys around 14 to indicate a transition. But again, adequate vitamin D and calcium and minerals help in situation like that to minimize any excess of the discomfort, but usually it is a harmless physiological transition phase.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Douglas, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. I heard you mentioning a lot about eating more green leafy vegetables and such like, but then you started to mention some strange ones, strange by the idea that we are not accustomed to using such parts of the plant as a vegetable. And how would, like, yes, for instance, you talked about using sweet potato leaves, you talked about eating beetroot tops. I can also add in carrot tops and such like. You would realize, so, sir, that this will have to be eaten by those persons who are growing these at home, because most of the time the commercial ones are heavily sprayed. I've never gone into a ground and get sweet potato leaves. I've eaten sweet potato leaves before, and they're quite tasty when they're just steamed lately. I can even stir fry them, but they're usually the ones that are a little younger, rather than when you go to dig your sweet potato and just take a slip after that. A lot of that slip has been sprayed. So these things that you're advocating may be good. Yes, I agree with you, but you gotta watch some of them at times, because some of them are not necessarily the best flavor. in terms of spraying.
Yes, thanks. One very good green leafy vegetable mentioned by the research is what we call Chinese cabbage, what the Trinidadians call bok choy. But Chinese cabbage is also noted as a top green leafy vegetable. Notice the sting in it when you eat it raw that represents powerful anti-inflammatory, antioxidant polyphenols. And that can be eaten raw or lightly steamed. Chinese cabbage.
But there was one that I love a lot, but I don't really get to see it. Some people call it mustard bush or mustard green.
Very, very powerful anti-cancer stuff. We don't see a lot now compared to the old time days, but good stuff, mustard bush.
The one that I get from the places where I grow it, I find that butterflies and the caterpillars for the butterflies, I mean, they hardly like to let you get any of it as soon as it comes out because it's kind of purplish green. I mean, you just cut up a little piece and put it in your mouth, it stings, it burns. It's even worse than eating raw onion. But I figured that if the butterflies can eat it down overnight and so fast, it has to be very, very, very good because they then turn into more butterflies and become the best. So somehow these things have to be very, very nutritious that animals love it.
That's right. Good stuff. And those creatures don't suffer from any premature disease. They live out, if the lifespan is 3 weeks, they live to the 3 weeks. Okay, any other question or thought? Otherwise, we will get ready to take a break before we hand over to Elder Austin. So I hope we get the message. More green leafy vegetables, more, a lot more, fewer calories and the heavy starches that tend to pile on the weight. And don't forget the importance of vitamin D. Don't forget the value of exercise. I was listening to a diabetologist this week from Trinidad, and he was talking about the Trinidadian situation with a lot of children down there getting obese, not getting any outdoor exercise. And he was saying that growing children need an hour minimum of high vigorous running about during the day. And that used to be so when we were growing up ages ago, in the 50s and 60s, we would go back into classroom after break with our shirts soaked down with sweat, perspiration. But nowadays, he was saying that the children are now sitting down before devices, exercising their fingers on knobs and not getting an exercise. And there's a big increase in diabetes type 2 in children in Trinidad. We are seeing it here in Barbados as well. So exercise is very important for all age groups. And sometimes we get circumstances where we can't exercise, like lockdowns, and now recently with the volcanic ash. But whenever we can, we should remember and practice the importance of exercise. An hour a day, 40 to 60 minutes a day, very important exercises for overall health, not to forget that.
A question here, Doc.
Yes, sir.
Given the volcanic dust in Barbados and the prevalence of the micro dust itself, what measures would you suggest that people take? A wet cloth over their nostrils? How do you protect yourself from getting the micro dust that would then go and lodge in your lungs and make you very...
Yeah, the authorities are saying that you wear an effective mask, the masks that can filter out small particles, the respirator kind of mask or the N95 mask that are double mask. If one of them has moisture in it or water, it will help to trap more readily. But we have to do our best to avoid inhaling when we go outdoors the particles. We will still inevitably inhale some, but we should minimize the exposure of the lungs to them. And that's the importance of keeping the respiratory system in tip-top shape so that the hairs or cilia can waft out anything we inhale. And we mentioned that last week. But yes, double masking or certain masks that are very efficient at preventing the inhalation of those things, that is important. Very important.
I also get the impression that even in your house, because especially at home, they were telling me that they like the seal the windows and so forth to keep out the
And it
dust.
still comes in.
Only to
It
find
still
the dust
comes
in, which means that
Yes.
the air itself in the house will have those micro
Yes,
particles.
so you
in a
still have to be
mask in your
careful.
house.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So some people are wearing masks in and out, especially if they're very sensitive. It's not easy. And the doctors have noted an increase in respiratory complaints. People with wheezing and tightness in the chest, even who were not asthmatics before. And then people who are asthmatics and suffer from allergic sinusitis, increased attacks. So it has been a definite challenge. Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, doctors reporting these challenges. And of course, those are the acute short-term risk. There is the fear of the long-term risk down the road of increasing the risk for chronic issues and even lung cancer. So we should, because we don't know what heavy metals may be in this thing, we should do our best to protect the inhalation of these particles as much as possible. So if you're going for a walk, we may have to go for a walk with a mask on, with some moisture on, and bear the inconvenience.
Should allow me one comment.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I am almost in triple jeopardy down here on the West Coast. We have the Highway One project going. There's
Well,
still a lot of dust on the road
yeah,
for a long time now, and everything the cars pass that
for the,
blows dust up. Then there's adjustments to freeway, and
okay.
then there's just a few yards off the main road. Like coming out on the top of the piano, it's completely. We got to know how you clean it. By the time I get back home, it is covered with that dust again. Just
Well,
and it's still the same thing. If I miss a walk across the floor barefoot, not miss a walk, but walk barefoot, you can feel the thing on the foot. Regardless of what to do, how you sweep, how you vacuum, by the time I get back home, it's the same thing all over again. And I've gotten out of wearing a mask in the hardware store and home. I sleep with the mask on because I'm seeing the amount of dust that's in here.
yes, yes.
And I'm worried about it because it is all pervasive. Everywhere you go, you touch the surface, you can
That's,
feel the dust.
that's true. And we
You
may
can feel it.
not be aware of how much we're inhaling.
This is what bothered me. That I said it was sleep with a mask on.
Yes,
Sleep with a mask on because it is terrible.
that's
At least in this area.
an important point. Yeah, because we may just take it for granted that the air looks good and we'll be inhaling. Yes, that's
Mm-mm.
important.
No, and outside we have one, two cars that they work on. Believe me, the cars are buried under that thing, really. Buried under the dust, the cement. So it looks like cement. I can call it cement. It looks like cement.
We are
Okay.
so fearfully and wonderfully made that our lungs can do a lot of cleaning out.
Well, my lungs are gonna have to do a lot of cleaning up because living in this environment, I can tell you this. This is a all day, all night thing.
That's
The
why
only
the
difference is that there's less traffic during the night. That's the only little difference. And not a drop of rain to wash away some of it,
yeah,
to dampen it down a bit. Nothing.
particularly dangerous on the west coast there in Barbados
Yes, please. Yes, please.
before the volcano and now with the volcano. and the volcanic ash and the road repairs.
Mm-hmm.
Double, triple jeopardy.
Triple jeopardy is right.
Yeah.
Triple jeopardy.
Well, continue to keep safe there.
I'll
Thanks.
try. I'll try. Okay.
Brother Douglas,
Yes.
Brother Douglas, you know, you're all welcome to Guyana. Where the air is fresh and things for no. So
Okay.
people get maybe free up, and people heading to North America get to learn more of the Caribbean.
Well, I'd be happy to escape, but send me the ticket.
No, no problem, my brother.
So, Miss Timothy Roger Odell of CARICOM fame invited Barbadians to Guyana to escape the volcanic ash. Thank you for your kindness. And of course, you have all the other kinds of leaves down there that we don't have that you still use in your morning green shade. Wonderful. But Odell, when you're finished, call me or WhatsApp me whether I want to ask you a question. You have my number, right? But
Yes, no problem, no problem.
after the program. Thanks.